A documentary titled Lee Soo Man, King of K-pop was released, so I watched the almost 2-hour documentary, took some notes, and have everything that you need to know from it, so you don't have to watch it yourself. Hey everyone, I'm Lisa and welcome back to the channel. If you've ever wondered what goes on behind the scenes at one of the biggest names in K-pop, SM Entertainment, and who is the man that helped shape the industry, then you're in the right place. Today, we're diving deep into the life and work of the legendary Lee Soo Man of SM Entertainment. So, let's go back to the very beginning. Lee Soo Man was born in 1952 during the Korean War in a Christian household. As the youngest, or the maknae, of 3 brothers, his family wasn't really wealthy. His father ran a business and his mother was a piano teacher. Despite not being able to afford high school or college, Lee Soo Man had big dreams. He learned guitar with his brother, who dreamed of becoming a singer. But their parents were opposed to the idea because, like most parents, they feared the financial instability. By the time Lee Soo Man was 18, he started writing music and performing, though he actually kept it a secret from his parents. A pivotal moment in his life came when Leif Garrett, an American singer, performed in South Korea. In the documentary, Lee Soo Man said that he saw the global fan excitement and reaction and realized that while international audiences knew Western music, knew Leif Garrett, Korean music was not really on the map. It didn't work the other way around. So that was the moment that set him on a mission to change all of that. He moved to the US in 1981 to study computer engineering at Northridge, California. There he met his future wife, a design student, who would after help with album covers and artist stage outfits when SM was just starting out and didn't really have any funds. After graduating, Lee Soo Man returned to South Korea, building his company from the ground up. He invested in SM Entertainment, which would later become a powerhouse, the powerhouse in the K-pop world. They didn't call it the big 3 for nothing. SM was one of those big 3. So first things first, what does Lee Soo Man actually do at SM? Or should I say did, but that's for later. Well, his official title is Chief Producer of SM Entertainment, but it's so much more than that. After watching the documentary, you can basically say that Lee Soo Man was the heart and soul of SM's music production. Basically, his main job is to listen to all of the songs, all of the music that's being made at the company. He reviews everything, gives feedback, and basically guides the overall direction of the sound that SM is known for. But he's not just a creative producer, he's also an engineer. In the documentary, Lee Soo Man clearly states that he approaches music making from a logical standpoint, which ultimately gave us the K-pop system. So Lee Soo Man broke down the K-pop system in a bunch of different phases: casting, training, producing, and then marketing. So the K-pop system that SM Entertainment created, it's kind of like an all-in-one ecosystem, right? SM does everything in-house, from making the music itself to talent management to marketing all of the music and the talent. They train all of their artists intensively in dance, vocals, acting, even DJing, as was shown in the documentary, which was kind of surprising. And this training can last anywhere from 1 to 7 years, depending on the artist. But it's not just about individual talent. SM emphasizes teamwork, sharing ideas, building a team full of aces, meaning they just don't want one star, they want to create a group of stars. And to make it in the global market, they focus on training their artists to learn different languages, making them more adaptable to international markets. And one of the prime examples of this was BoA. In the documentary, BoA actually made an appearance, and it kind of went into detail about how she was brought on almost purely to target the Japanese market. She was not only their first female solo artist, she was their biggest investment, and they really put a lot of money and time into her to try to take over the Japan market, which was the second biggest music market after the United States. But we're kind of going too far. I don't want to get too lost in the weeds. Let's bring it back to South Korea. One of the first challenges was the stigma that South Korea had against dance music, but Lee Soo Man saw that the youth was embracing it, kind of like a counterculture. So in 1996, HOT, South Korea's first idol group, debuted. With South Korea opening up politically, there was a whole historical aspect to the documentary, but we're not going to get too deep into that either. HOT became a major force in spreading Korean music internationally. First to China, then Japan. Japan was the second largest music market after the US, so they knew they had to expand. Over the years, Lee Soo Man continued to expand SM's influence, creating TVXQ or DBSK, Super Junior, and EXO, all of whom embraced unique concepts and universes. When I say unique concepts, this is when EXO enters the picture. So EXO introduced the idea that they came from an exoplanet. That's right, an entire sci-fi world tied to their music. There was a little clip in the documentary where Suho was trying to explain what the concept was, and you notice he kind of cringed a little or like chuckled a little, just because when you have to explain it to like a normie, and I say normie, as in anyone who doesn't really know K-pop, you can tell it's a little like awkward. As K-pop evolved, so did SM's strategy. NCT was created with the idea of expanding across the globe, with each country getting its own version of NCT, which was revolutionary on its own. Like, SM did not come to play. They really built every group with a lot of intentionality. And then there came aespa, a revolutionary girl group combining virtual avatars and real-life performances, introducing the world to the metaverse in K-pop. Now let's talk about Lee Soo Man's philosophy on music, because this is where I thought things got really interesting. You know, in all of my time listening to K-pop, I kind of never really looked into Lee Soo Man and his origin story and how he influenced the sound. I started listening to K-pop in the second gen, so DBSK and Super Junior were my first groups. They were the first ones that exposed me to K-pop. So I was an SM girly. I was a big SM fan. But I never really looked into the origins of the company. In this documentary, when he started explaining about his philosophy on music, that's when I was like, whoa, that got really interesting. It turns out Lee Soo Man's personal preferences in music have influenced SM's signature sound. In the documentary, he said he's a fan of mixing different instruments, mixing different genres and tempos in a single track. And that explains so much. Think about songs like
Let me put it down another way.
or the majority of Red Velvet's hits. That's Lee Soo Man's philosophy in action. He's creating a unique blend of sounds that you can't find anywhere else. And like NCT, I saw NCT perform in Toronto, and that was my first time listening to their music. And the amount of switch ups and different sounds and like instrumentation, that's all SM. SM is thinking about the world as their stage. They weren't limiting themselves to just South Korea, but there's more. K-pop is more than just the song or the music. It's the entire package. Lee Soo Man believes it's the combination of music, visuals, concepts, and storytelling that defines K-pop. He even compared it to bibimbap, you know, the very delicious and popular Korean dish with the mix of flavors and ingredients that come together perfectly. For example, Lee Soo Man was sharing the story that when he was in Los Angeles, he saw how music videos really highlighted music and the choreography. He was watching Michael Jackson, he saw how popular his music videos were, and that inspired him to shift focus towards making K-pop more about the performance, emphasizing the performance. And that's where we get those insane choreo routines that fans love so much. But Lee Soo Man didn't just want to create a new sound. He wanted to make people fall in love with South Korea. In the documentary, it was very clear that he took a very patriotic stance. He really wanted to let the world know about South Korea. Like, his vision wasn't just about fame and wealth for himself or his company. It was about creating a cultural phenomenon. The Hallyu wave was born to introduce Korean culture to the world, which in turn would bring success and wealth to South Korea itself. So this leads us to a term where he dubbed CT, culture technology. This concept was all about engineering a system that would spread Korean culture worldwide, starting with the music and spreading to fashion, acting, everything you can think of. It's not just about being a pop star, it's about creating a global impact. And this is where I have to give respect to SM that he was thinking big. He was thinking more than just South Korea, domestic. He really wanted to make a global impact. And speaking of impact, let's talk about the concept of secret worlds. Lee Soo Man pioneered the idea that K-pop artists should have universes, a world built around their concept. Let's go back to EXO, for example. Their exoplanet narrative, where they're aliens with superpowers, wasn't just a gimmick, it became part of their identity. Every performance, every music video, every album, even the fan interactions and engagements, it was all part of this world that Lee Soo Man created. A concept wasn't just a short-term thing, it wasn't just a concept for one album, it was their entire identity. Now that's dedication to a concept. Here's the kicker, the term K-pop apparently didn't even exist before Lee Soo Man. So in the documentary, there was a producer there that said they had never heard of the term K-pop before Lee Soo Man introduced it. So in a way, Lee Soo Man didn't just create SM, he literally invented the global phenomenon that is K-pop. But not everything at SM was smooth sailing, and the documentary did touch on some of this. In 2009, some members of DBSK or TVXQ filed for an injunction seeking to escape their controversial contract. According to them, their 13-year contract was seen as too long and unfair in terms of profit divisions, and eventually led to the JYJ members and SM going their separate ways. This broke my heart. As I said, DBSK were my origin story. To hear them leave the group and the group get fragmented in that way, it was really, really hard. But I will say, because of that, that was probably one of the highest profile cases at that time that an artist was shedding light on unfair contracts, in their opinion, and how 13-year contracts is just inhumane. I think before, because K-pop was such a young industry, a lot of artists who were trying to make it just accepted it for the way that it was and agreed to a lot of terms that they probably wouldn't have if they had more power in the negotiation table. JYJ were probably one of the first to really fight it, shed light on it, say that this was not okay, and eventually walked away. But there weren't no consequences for it. I feel like this could be another separate video, really deep diving into DBSK and their situation and their story, because for years after, many years after, they were basically blacklisted from performing on broadcast in South Korea, which was so detrimental to any of their music and promotion. I don't want to get too deep into it because I get really fired up, and this is not what this video is about. So if you guys want to see that video, let me know and maybe we'll make something. Personally, I was quite shocked that they included that part of the DBSK story in the documentary. I want to acknowledge that the story was told from Lee Soo Man's perspective. Obviously this is a documentary about him, so it was kind of skewed towards defending SM's stance on the matter, instead of taking this moment to address the power imbalance between artists and labels and the injustice that does happen in the K-pop industry. He kind of just used it to emphasize the idea that companies invest so much money into their artists, which they do, I'm not saying that they don't, but because of that, it gives artists very little room to, decide their own projects and their own autonomy and their own direction and what they want to do. He kind of justified that situation because of just the money investment aspect. In the documentary, Lee Soo Man basically refutes the idea of unfair practices, saying that SM's contracts follow the standards set by the Korea Fair Trade Commission and therefore are not wrong. They're in the right. But we all know that while laws and regulations may allow something to be technically right, it doesn't mean that it's always ethically or morally correct. SM faced massive scrutiny following the tragic passings of Junghyun of SHINee and then later on FX's Sully as well. This brought international attention to the intense pressures placed on K-pop idols, and many articles started coming out saying the dark side of K-pop. As I was watching the documentary, the section where Lee Soo Man was talking about this, it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I came into this documentary very open-minded, and when he was talking about this, it just felt like he was deflecting. He kept saying, and once again, there's translations because I was reading subtitles, so there might have been something lost in translation, but he kept repeating that he was confused about their decision. I was so confused. Junghyun was at the height of his career. I didn't know. I knew about his depression, but I didn't know it was that bad. He was getting treatment. It just kind of came off a little bit like he was lacking empathy, almost like he was kind of trying to separate himself from the situation and creating distance. The idea that the industry they were in may have contributed to that eventuality. He was kind of being there's, no connection, or there's not really a connection. I don't know. It just really rubbed me the wrong way. At the end of 2022, after decades as the head of SM Entertainment, I mean, the company was named after him, Lee Soo Man had his contract terminated and he stepped down from his position as chief producer at SM amid a pretty public corporate battle. So the company was embroiled in a power struggle with another company called Kakao Corporation. It's another big brand in South Korea if you haven't heard of it. HYBE at this time also tried to step in and buy Lee Soo Man's large chunk of shares. So this was just like chaos in the corporate world, okay? Lee Soo Man was getting ousted, and a lot of, whether you want to call them sharks in the water or just opportunists, they were ready to swoop in and own a huge chunk of one of the biggest brand labels in South Korea. So the update is, as of 2025, Kakao Corporation and Kakao Entertainment, which are separate entities, own the majority of SM Entertainment, with HYBE holding a smaller share. Despite all the drama, Lee Soo Man's legacy in K-pop remains unmatched, having built an entire empire that still shapes the music industry today. So as we're wrapping up here, there's one thing that I did notice, that there was kind of a lack of Girls' Generation, Red Velvet, and like SHINee. Like none of them gave exclusive interviews for this documentary, and it also kind of skimmed over their role and impact a little bit, which I found kind of interesting. Like, all of aespa showed up. Taeyong from NCT were there. Kangta was there. He's an OG. Boa was even in the documentary. And what's funny was that there was even members of RISE, who I guess at the time of the documentary, while it was being filmed, RISE hasn't debuted yet, so they introduced as like trainees of the SM system. Those boys don't know what they are in store for. All right, that's the end of the video. Did all of this information change your perspective on K-pop and your thoughts and feelings about SM and Lee Soo Man? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button if you want more deep dives into the world of K-pop and culture. I'm Lisa, and I'll see you in the next video.